Hello, my name is Karen Bonet, and we'd like to welcome you to The Writer's Dream, a show that features local authors and who talk about their writing and publishing experiences. And today we're happy to welcome Shoshanna McCollum. She is the author of Fire Island Beach Resort and National Seashore, published by Arcadia Publishing. She was the former curator of the Ocean Beach Historical Society, and she has a lot to share today, so welcome, Shoshanna.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
Welcome. Shoshanna, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, about yourself, your day job, where you live and work?
Well, I live and work on Fire Island. My day job, if you want to call it that, it's really more of a night job, is I'm the coordinator of the adult education program at Fire Island Union Free School District. I work part-time there, which allows me to support my writing. I also write freelance for a number of regional Long Island publications, mostly based on Fire Island, the Fire Island Tide, the Islip Bulletin, and a few others.
Wonderful. I know you've won a couple of awards for your writing.
Yes. Over the past 5 or 10 years, I won both a New York Press Association Award and a Long Island Press Club Award. So
Wonderful.
For journalism, yes.
Wonderful. That's very nice. So, so when did you write your book, Fire Island Beach Resort and National Seashore? And I know it was recently published. What made you write a book about Fire Island?
Well, it seemed a natural transition. I started the book in 2010. The opportunity presented itself. I was approached by the president of the Fire Island Association, a gentleman by the name of Jerry Stoddard. He prepares the foreword for the book. Arcadia approached him and said, "We are looking for a writer to prepare a book on Fire Island. Do you know somebody who's qualified?"
So he thought about you.
Yeah, he reached out to me. Jerry and I had known each other for many years. I had reported many Fire Island Association events. He knew I was dependable. He knew if there was an event, I'd show up. He knew I would give thoughtful coverage. So, so there was a lot of respect in that relationship. And,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what is the genre of your book, do you feel?
It's a nonfiction book. It's a local history book. Arcadia specializes in local history books. They have a format which is pretty well known. They have over 7,000 titles in this Images of America series, and they all fit a similar size and format. What excites me is there's been other books about Fire Island. There's no question about it. But this is one of the first I've seen in a photo essay format, and so it allows you to present the history in a new and fresh way. And it's part of a series, rather than a standalone effort. And
so did you give us a little brief synopsis about what it's about or what people can expect when they read the book? I know you have a lot of photos there, over 200, which is amazing that you can get your hands on that many photos dating back to the 17th century on.
Yes, Fire Island's roots really begin as a British colony, and so, of course, you can't always get pictures from the late 1600s, but you can certainly talk about it and locate archival maps, and that's the beginning. And so we touch on that, as well as Fire Island as a geological formation. It's a barrier island that's very unique, and it's part of Long Island's barrier island system. And that's important to discuss. The pictures came from a variety of sources. 25% approximately came from the archives of Fire Island National Seashore. They were a huge partner in cooperation with this. Other photos were collected from people's private photo albums and smaller historical societies, mostly on South Shore Long Island. And on the occasional effort, there were occasions where I had to just take out my camera and take a picture because I was interviewing somebody who I knew was part of Fire Island history.
So how long did it take you to put together all these photos? That must have been the hardest part for you to gather so many photos.
The compilation effort, research, writing, and all took about a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so why Fire Island? Do you have a connection to Fire Island? How long have you been there? Why did you decide to write a book about Fire Island?
Well, I'm a native of Massachusetts. I am not a native New Yorker or a Long Islander, but when I came to Fire Island, it seemed the most natural choice. I went to School of Visual Arts. I took my curator position at the Ocean Beach Historical Society in 1994, and that was really my training ground for the book. I was training for it and didn't know it.
Right.
What was I doing there but researching archival photos and making captions for them? That's what I did.
Okay.
I knew that format well. I was very familiar with it.
From your book, I learned that the Fire Island National Seashore was established in 1964.
Yes.
And so can you tell us what has changed profoundly since then? Something that might stick in your mind.
Oh, well, that's a loaded question because...
Probably a lot of things.
A lot of people see Fire Island in terms of pre-National Seashore and post-National Seashore. And what is pivotal in Fire Island, you're going to get different answers from different people. But for me, the most profound change, Fire Island National Seashore is hitting its 50th anniversary in 2014. And I would say the environmental pressures are the most, to me, that's the biggest concentration. I mean, there are so many things that we have to worry about now that we didn't have to worry about in 1964. Lyme disease, West Nile virus, the development of Fire Island. People really want to build great big beach houses there, and they forget this is a national seashore, folks.
It wasn't meant for that.
Well, if you decide you're going to live in a national seashore, I feel strongly that you understand there are certain consequences to that decision. Nobody puts a gun to your head and says, buy a house on the beach. So when you say, okay, I want to live here, now let's dose the whole island with pesticides, I have a bit of a problem with that.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's so many beautiful houses and places to see in Fire Island.
Yes.
Is there a certain kind of codes that allow you to build up to a certain level?
Well, that's one of the controversial things. The codes within the towns of Brookhaven and town of Islip are not perfect matches to the codes that Fire Island National Seashore desires, and variances can be issued without a lot of trouble. And so it's easy to override those restrictions.
Okay, so how about if we talk now about the writing and publishing process?
Sure.
How long did it take you to write your book? First, let's ask that.
Well, there was the proposal phase, which took up most of the summer. I didn't just say, hello, here I am, aren't I wonderful? They wanted to see that I had the stuff. So the proposal process was writing a miniature book in itself.
Was that like the query that you sent to?
I sent a query, I sent a resume, a few clips, and they said, gee, you sound wonderful. Here's the proposal. The proposal was over 50 pages. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. I can't do this.
Who was the publisher? Arcadia. Right?
Arcadia, they have a, and they
have
just
certain guidelines, I'm sure.
After I panicked, I relaxed and looked and realized this is a test. They want to see that you're going to survive this.
Right.
And just like eating an elephant one bite at a time.
Right.
That's how I handled it. And once it was done, it wasn't that bad. And once they had accepted the proposal, I knew I was going to survive this.
Right. Just getting past that initial stage.
Yes, but It helped my confidence. I don't know, had they not put me through the ringer that way, if I would have had the same confidence in going after it. And then by
Right.
then, I had the outline done. I really knew what I wanted to do. There wasn't any
Okay.
question.
So asking you, I wanted to say, what was the biggest challenge for you now that we spoke about this? Was there anything else that was a big challenge for you?
Oh yeah, I would have to say time. I knew that I had a deadline, and I understand deadlines very well in my business. And even though the deadline was a year away, Fire Island, your neighbors are going to be the greatest neighbors in the world, and they're going to be the greatest robbers of your time. Once I was in there in my office working almost every day on that book, the phone would ring. Are you busy? Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Suddenly, I found myself a one-woman battle to keep people from encroaching on my time and energy unnecessarily.
Right.
That was...
When you have a job and you're trying to write a book and
Yes, my
carry on
job didn't go away. I still had bills to pay. I'm not... yeah, life had to go on.
Right. So what was your favorite part of the writing process, would you say?
Well, I love the research. I love discovering something new. If there's nothing to... Sure, I had put into it everything I had learned before, but if I didn't discover something new along the way, then I wasn't really doing what I should be doing. And I loved meeting the people, and I loved finding those aha photographs, the ones that you said,
I'm
bingo,
sure.
I got it, this is it.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a rush.
Were you involved with the layout of the book with all the photos, or did they do that for you?
They have a certain layout formula. However, no, they gave me something called a layout planner, and I numbered the photos and correlated it to their layout planner.
Okay.
And so yes, the sequence of photos is my arrangement.
Okay.
Yes.
How about ideas? Did you get ideas at random times? Did you all of a sudden have that aha moment? And what did you do when you were maybe in the car? Did you have something that you might have done? Did you have a pad in the car? Did you have something you could write your notes on? Or you know, it goes away, right? If you don't write it down.
It does go away, and I've forgotten many of those ideas. But I kind of have a way of making myself totally miserable. I will not I'll sit there in front of the computer and not budge till something happens, and then nothing happens. And so I go to wash the dishes, and then once I let go a little, then it clicks. But if I hadn't done the other thing before, the washing the dishes wouldn't have mattered.
So how about writer's block? Did you experience writer's block? And if you did, how did you overcome it?
I don't really believe in writer's block, believe it or not, Karen. I don't believe in it. I believe it's a thing that marketers made for seminars. You have your good days, you have your bad days, days you're not feeling well, even days you have no business writing. There are even bad days where it's like fighting your way out of a paper bag and you're not doing too well. But, you know, you go back and you try again. To me, it's that simple.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay. I know I had a writer's block, but what I found helped me was to just clear my mind and make sure there was nothing. I didn't answer the phone, just have nothing else around me that could distract me. So, but it was a little bit of a problem every now and then. So tell me about the publishing experience. I know you went with the traditional route. You chose to go with Arcadia, which is a traditional publisher. Why did you choose this path instead of self-publishing?
Well, as I said, I think my circumstances were a little different, and I was very fortunate. Most people don't get approached by basically a headhunter saying, "Can you do this?"
Right.
I didn't look for them; they kind of found me.
Right. Okay.
And so once they told me what they wanted, who else was I going to give it to but Arcadia? It was.
You were lucky that you were actually approached.
Yeah,
and
I was lucky that it was a nice group of people. It's a nice, small, intimate publishing house. It's not some big conglomerate. They treated every writer individually. I never felt I was part of a pile of papers in their office. I always got one-on-one attention.
Okay.
And so it was a very good experience working with
Okay.
them.
Do you enjoy history on the whole? Do you do a lot of research about history? You love history.
I love history. I always have. I was a sponge for it as a kid, and that didn't go away. And I loved photo essay books even as a kid. I was not what I'd call an A student or a great reader as a child,
Right.
but so when
More nonfiction is what you liked then.
I think I do write short fiction pieces. I have in the past, but I would say I think nonfiction will be my path most probably.
Okay. Do you feel that you'll have another book after this one?
You know, everyone wants to say they hope so. I'm living in the moment right now. I still have a lot to learn about this whole process and this experience, and I hope that will feed into whatever the next opportunity is. And I hope I recognize that opportunity when it comes.
Well, you've just been published, so you have there's a lot to do. Marketing and promoting is very important. Do you have any ideas of what you're going to do as far as marketing and promoting? Because that's one of the most important things you could probably do to get the word out about your book.
I believe learning is part of the process too.
Yes.
And unfortunately, sometimes we learn from our mistakes. But
Yes, that's true. We all do that. So tell me what your favorite aspect of the literary projects. Tell me about that. And also, why don't you share with us your background? I know you have relatives who were writers.
well, let's backtrack a minute. When you say the literary process, as I said, I went to art school. I did not go. I'm not an English major. I'm not a history professor. So for me, I'm a bit of a science fiction geek, a little bit of one.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the process of that connection you make with somebody when you're doing the interview process. To me, that's huge. Not related to the book, but an article I was working on for one of the papers during that year. There was a gentleman I know. He was a magazine writer, a jazz musician of some renown, and we had worked together to promote his concerts, and we had a friendly relationship. But when he turned 99, I knew it was time to interview him.
Oh.
I said, let me. I want to.
Story
Yeah,
out.
I need to hear your story. We both knew there was a chance he wouldn't make it to 100. We just knew, and so I had my job that moment was to be sort of an open cup and take his words.
Yeah.
And then once I got back to process them, to sort of regurgitate it in a form that could be taken by others. And I say that I'm a science fiction buff because if you watch Star Trek,
Oh, I love Star Trek.
Okay, we humans can't do the Vulcan mind meld. I can't do that to you. But this exchange is as close as we're going to get. And so I find I live for that process. I really do.
Interviewing and researching.
Yes.
Everyone has a story to tell,
Yes.
right? If you really dig deep enough.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are your plans for the future in this field? What else do you plan to do with your writing?
I hope to be connected to this world in some way for a very long time. But I've always been a person who sees what opportunities present themselves.
Okay. Very good. Why don't you share with us some of the awards that you have received and some of your accomplishments? Tell us about your background in writing when you were working with some of the papers. I know some of the community papers, the New York Times.
Well, again, we have to go back to, as far as Fire Island's concerned, the Ocean Beach Historical Society, because it was there that I met the publisher of the Fire Island Tide, and we became friends, and he offered me my first column.
Yes.
And that was back in the year 2000, and honestly, those my first pieces were not very good. I was lucky enough not to be aware of that. But I got better with time, and I since then think I've gained a little muscle, hopefully. And as far as you say, you got to market yourself. As I say, I'm a bit of a shrinking violet when you talk about that, but I realized if I wasn't going to pursue those journalism awards, no editor was really going to pave the way for me. I had to.
You had to do it yourself.
I had to let the editor know I want that award. I want you to consider this piece. Sometimes I would, if the editor was interested in really advancing their own interests and not so much their writers, I went out and filled out my own applications.
Okay.
So sometimes
you have to be an advocate for yourself.
You have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very important. Yeah. So now, maybe you can share with us a fond memory from your experience with living, working, and being involved in the community activities on Fire Island. Maybe you could share with us that story.
A story. Oh, I mean, every 4th of July is a nice day on the ocean, in the ball field, yes. And that's a nice day. There was one assignment I was given last year that I didn't really want, and it's funny how sometimes the assignments you don't really want end up being your best work. But the Wounded Warrior Project was coming to Fire Island, and you're familiar with the Wounded Warrior?
Yes, I'm familiar, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit for us.
It's a cross-country bike ride of men and women who've served, who've been injured in the line of duty in the military, and the bike ride is both to help them get their work skills and their self-esteem back from wherever recovery they're coming from, and it's a great cause. I just found personally when they did their big gala fundraiser on Fire Island, I found the streets were far too crowded for my comfort. And I didn't care for the local politicians taking advantage of that event to congratulate themselves. I was like, oh, God, please don't send me to that thing. Plus, it was very, very, very hot that day. But I took a shower. I came late, so I missed most of the speeches. And once I was actually there with the men and women from the fire departments who organized the event, and the men and women who were serving themselves, from various military services, I found I've changed my mind and was having really a good time and felt good about being there. And in the end, a nice-looking fellow about 15 years younger than me gave me a fellow in the Israeli army gave me a kiss on the lips, a nice chaste one, and I couldn't stop smiling all night. Really.
Change your experience about the event after that.
I think if I get that assignment this year,
You'll take it.
I'll take it.
That's a nice story. Now, maybe you can tell us, Fire Island is fairly accessible. Maybe you can tell us, in Long Island, how would people get to it? Where is it in relation to the North Shore, the South Shore?
Okay, if you know the shape of Long Island, it's a pretty much a west to east formation, and about 1 mile, about 5 miles south of Long Island South Shore is where you're going to find Fire Island. It's a barrier island that stretches 32 miles long,
32 miles.
But it's only about a mile wide at the widest point. It's a long, skinny island. People have called it a shoestring, and I think that's the best analogy I've ever heard. And yes, it's accessible by ferry through the summer months, and that's why it's so popular. Is driving is limited there. They call it the island of no cars, but that's certainly not true.
Oh, can people take? I know they have the jeeps that drive back and forth to the schools and throughout the town, but you can actually bring a car there.
Well, they have within Fire Island National Seashore regulations. They have about 150 driving permits for residents, and it's capped at that number. So there's a significant waiting list.
Okay.
But as I said, once you decide you're going to live within a national park, you live with the consequences, and that will mean you might be on a waiting list for 6 months to a year. It means even if you have one of these permits, it doesn't mean you can drive off whenever you want. You certainly can't do it in the summer. You take the ferry like everybody else.
Right, right.
But in the middle of January, there's maybe 1 or 2 ferries a day if the bay doesn't freeze. Certainly, that's not conducive to living easily these days if you had to depend on that.
Right.
Yeah.
What do people do in the winter months for supplies? Is there enough stores on Fire Island, or do they have to take the ferry over to get their supplies? What do they usually do? People who live there year-round, I mean.
Well, the stores that are there year-round, there's one restaurant and there's one convenience store, and they're really there for maybe if you forget something, but they're not really a place where I'd want to do my major shopping. If you become dependent on the Greater Long Island for those services and essentials, you really do.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us that we may not have asked you? Something else having to do with your work, or something you're going to, future projects you might be doing?
Well, first of all, the book is available at Amazon. It's also available at Barnes & Noble. And don't forget to shop at arcadiapublishing.com.
Right.
Through the summer months, it's going to be hopefully in a number of Fire Island shops. I know the Fire Island Lighthouse is selling it now.
Right. What other stores in Fire Island will carry your book?
Well, definitely my old alma mater, Ocean Beach Historical Society, will be carrying it. I know of a few other small clothing shops that have agreed to carry it. But I don't have a full list available yet.
Of bookstores?
Yeah, it's still a little too early. Once Memorial Day season is almost here, but it's not quite here. So they wait till the very last minute to start those wheels going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this was wonderful. It's great to talk to you, and thank you for sharing your experience about Fire Island, and your book's wonderful. I read a lot of it, and I look forward to you being very successful with this endeavor with the book. And thanks for being here with us.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay.